So the next one we're going to look at is getting your pricing right. And, you know, for some reason, I don't know why it is, the public just doesn't love caskets like we do. I love caskets. You know, growing up, you know, we'd drive out to Bolton, Ontario, and we'd be there with my Uncle Paul and my Grandpa Bill Egan. And so Grandpa's funeral home, where him and Grandma lived on the top of the funeral home, they called that the apartment. And then to get down to the funeral chapel, we'd have to walk through the selection room. Just when I was a little kid, Grandpa, he wouldn't just take me right down the stairs. He'd always walk around the selection room and he'd give me a little education on the different types of metals and different types of woods and explain to me what unit pricing was. And when I started apprenticing, I sure polished my fair share of caskets. And every Friday, working at McCall's, the delivery truck would come in and it was a bit of a ritual that we'd unload all the caskets there. So we're exposed to it a lot, and you know, when my time comes, this is my favorite. I've made it explicit that I really like to have a provincial maple. I really love those individual wood bar handles, and you know, it feels real Canadian to me. So I want one of those. But you know, I love caskets. For some reason, though, consumers don't, and it's not that they don't like caskets themselves, they just don't see the value in the caskets. And what this slide is showing is they were asked, what do you value in the service offerings that we provide? And at the top, in the professional services, embalming, visitations, funerals, they have 61%, both strongly and somewhat strongly see value in those services. Then it goes down to out-of-pocket expenses, including flowers and death notices. And then the next one at 52% is cemetery property, including plots and niches. Then at 46%, bronze memorials or granite markers. Then down to 44% transportation, limos. And then the bottom three are caskets, urns, and vaults. And this isn't new. This was almost identical to what it was 5 years ago when the first Pollora report came out in 2005. So, why do they not see value in caskets? Well, it's probably the second biggest blunder that we've made in business strategy in the industry. The first one was, you know, tying our most profitable service offering to something that they don't see value in. And I don't know who's to blame for this, and it probably happened back when the FTC in the US came out with, you're not allowed to unit price anymore, you have to itemize your services. And someone somewhere decided that it would be a great idea to mark up caskets 200, 300%, and not put the focus of the finances on our professional services. I don't know, someone gave us some bad advice there. And I'm serious, I don't know who it is. I've asked people who are actually involved in that, and they just kind of said, well, that kind of happened. And so no one that I can find will take responsibility for that. But if maybe they said, you know what, just add 25% or add 50% to the wholesale cost of the casket. If that happened, there wouldn't be Costco selling caskets, there wouldn't be Walmart, there wouldn't be Amazon.com selling caskets. But since there's 200 and 300% markup, some people don't see value in it. And you know, we've been told, oh well, it's the same amount of wood that belongs, you know, that goes into a dining room set and stuff like that. But you know, we're just trying to justify that, and they're not buying that anymore. So, and I know that some companies have actually been proactive and have dropped their merchandise fees, taken that money, moved it over to the professional services, and usually without a hiccup, both from corporations that have done this down to just small funeral homes that have done this. And what it'll do a few things that are positive. First of all, the casket manufacturers will love it because now their products are going to be sold at a lower price, more people will buy them, or more people will maybe upgrade because it's not as expensive as they thought. It'll give you a competitive advantage if your funeral home uses the old pricing method, because it's really hard to justify why your casket that's the exact same make and model as another one is $1,000 less than your competitors. They cannot justify why that would be. They might say, oh, well, that other funeral home, their service fees are way more expensive. Well, we're in the funeral service profession, right? We should be able to justify our services more so than justifying why a casket would be more expensive at your firm versus someone else. So if you're going to consider this, first of all, I'd recommend doing this with an accountant and or a funeral consultant. But just to maybe, if you're going to start to work the numbers to see how things may shake out, first of all, I'd take your average funeral value for each of your service offerings, and including the average casket that's purchased with that, come up with the total. Once you have that, whatever that casket is, maybe reduce it by 30% or 50%. Now this is depending if what the markup is. If the markup's 200% or more, if it's less than that, then you don't want to be taking 50% off because you're going to be below your wholesale. But then you take that amount of money and push it over to your service fee, and then go through and adjust accordingly the rest of your merchandise. And then just repeat that on all the other service offerings. And now it might be difficult in certain areas that maybe you're in a very competitive market, and you might think, well, if I put my service fees up too high, they're going to go to the competition. But you can just let them know, well, let me give you the entire price, including our services and our merchandise, because in the long run, your price is no different. It's still the same price. You've just moved it around, and you now have a competitive advantage because people can they can buy caskets elsewhere, and now yours don't look. There's not a huge gap between what a 300% marked up casket looks like to something that they can look online. So to take action on this one, just lower your merchandise fees, increase your professional services, and again, this is this funeral service profession. We should be able to justify our professional services.